Well, let's turn to the Word. We're in Matthew 6, verses. A little bit of a lengthy passage here. Hang in there with us. We'll talk about wealth. So wealth is something that the world's real interested in. And for Christians, I think it's the difficulty. I mean, because you got to have money, but there's a difference in having money and having money on the throne. So Matthew 6, verse 19, Jesus speaking, "Lay not up for yourselves treasure upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break in through or steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thine whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and mammon." So that's Jesus teaching in the Sermon on the Mount, and it's a tough lesson because it's just hard. But he's teaching a good lesson here. He starts off with a little motivation, and that's what I like. He kind of gives you some reasoning. He says, everything in this earth, on this earth, is corrupted. It can be corrupted by rust. It can be eaten by moths. And I've had both of those in my life. Examples of I've had guns completely rust over. I had a suit one time that was eaten to death with moths. I didn't realize it until I got it out of the closet and went to wear it. And you could see through about as much of the suit as there was there. But on the opposite of having our treasures here on the earth or having treasures in heaven, where moths are not an option, rust is not an option, and thieves cannot break in and steal. And that's because God is the steward of them. God is the protector of all the treasure that we have in heaven. And how do you have treasure in heaven? Is by doing the works for Jesus Christ. I'm not saying being legalist, but just out of a love for Jesus Christ, doing His work, sharing the gospel, discipling other people, being His hands and feet here in the earth. And so all the treasures that we get from that will be stored forever. And you will never have to worry about them being taken away. And what I like here at the very end, no man can serve two masters. And in Jesus' time, the slave trade was alive and well. And a slave, unlike today where you can have two jobs or you can have a part-time job over here and you can say, well, I work for here 8 to 3 and I go over here work. That wasn't an option in Jesus' day. You were a slave to one person and they owned you and you did whatever they told them to do. So you can't, in that scenario, you can't have two owners being a slave. You're going to work for the one or work for the other, but you can't work for both. And Jesus compares that to you cannot serve God and mammon. One of those in each of our lives is going to be on the throne of our heart. Wealth in the world or Jesus. And He says you can't have them both. You got to have one. And when we go back to His original motivation, when Jesus is on the throne of our heart, we'll always have that treasure. But the world, even though it promises and promises and promises to satisfy us and deliver us, will never be able to do that.
When you're talking about serving two masters, when you start loving money and stuff like that.
Yes.
Because that's when you start and say, hey, I can put back my church time a little bit, cut my prayer time back a little bit, and start chasing the worldly side of everything, versus keeping your eyes on God, giving Him the glory for everything. You start saying, well, if I do this, if I do that, guess what? You're not living by faith as letting God take over and meet your needs and supply everything you need for you.
Well, be specific. What is the difference? God created work and gave us work to do so that we wouldn't go crazy. Yeah. I don't think anybody's confused about that.
No.
But what is the difference between working to provide for your family, be a good steward, your Bible even tells you to save up a inheritance for your children.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all things in the Bible. They're biblical principles, but there's a difference, obviously, between that and what Jesus is saying. How do you know when you've crossed
When
over?
you cross the line, to me, it's when you start compromising. When you start compromising the other biblical teachings that God has taught us to put Him first in our life. If we say, well, I'm not, I ain't going to go to church Sunday because, they offering that overtime. So I ain't going to go because I need to go get that overtime. Or when you compromise and say, yeah, I don't think I want to, I don't want to spend any time with my kids because, they'll kind of take care of themselves. I'm needed over here at work. And so I'm going to take this overtime. I think there's some compromises that come in your mind where you know for a fact that God's having you, pointing you in this direction, but you've turned away and said, no, I'm not going to do that. I would rather go over here and work, or I'd rather go make money as opposed to do these other responsibilities. There's a balance, right?
Well, it has to be a balance. But I guess what I'm really wanting to hone in on, I think the lesson, the takeaway for somebody, they could be wondering, well, how am I worshiping? Is mammon on the throne? Is wealth on the throne? And I didn't know it. That's the one I kind of wanted to speak to today, really, is because it is confusing, because you have to, it's just like eating and gluttony.
Right.
You've got to eat.
There's a balance.
But then there's a point of eating that turns into gluttony, that turns into sin. And I think this is kind of where we're at in a financial standpoint, is you've got to work to eat, but you can get to a point where you're working so much that you begin to worship it. And what are the symptoms, or what are the signs of that? And I think you mentioned some of them. Well, I'm going to work every Sunday because they're giving double overtime on Sunday, and I'm going to trade that in. Or I can't serve the church in any way because, man, I've always got to be working. Yeah. I've always got to work. I ain't got time to serve the church. Or you've given up your prayer time because you're so tired every day chasing the dollar that you can't even stay awake to pray at night. Maybe that's kind of what I'm thinking that might be helpful.
Yeah. And I think it's in Luke 9, where it's talking about you got to pick up your cross and carry it. You got to make a sacrifice. Walking with Jesus ain't easy. You got to, just like when he made a sacrifice for us, we got to give up some stuff for him too. Yeah. Stuff, we got to give up our selfish needs and wants and desires pretty much to pick up and follow him too. Yeah. Folks get, I ain't gonna lie, I was the one that not too long ago, I was kind of I was still loved. I don't want anybody to think I wasn't loved, but I was the younger son, kind of always living in the shadow of the big brother and stuff like that. So when I got in college and got up where I wanted to do what I wanted to do, guess what I want to do? I want to be as much different as I could from my brother. Where he's, he stayed on the right track, and guess what I did? I was kind of like the prodigal son. Went running out through there, did what I want to do. I got this. I'm going to live my life like I want to. But when the good Lord gave me my babies, that was a real eye opener for me. Yeah. It was like, hey, I got a better plan for you than what you're trying to live. So, but it's just how easy it can happen, because you don't never say I will not. I quit coming to church, but there was about 6 years I didn't even hardly come to church or nothing. But it's just, you don't start out that way when you start walking off, from God, that it's like, hey, look how far I've done went. Yeah. But it's just how quick the devil can throw the traps and snares up. Sure. That get you bound down where you can't come, or feel like you can't come back, but Jesus always welcomes you back with open arms.
One of the devil's greatest tactics is he is very patient, and he's comfortable with just moving it just a little bit at a time where you don't notice it.
Because he's sitting there seeking who he can destroy.
Yeah, he don't have to come in here and flip the table over for you to just get you where you want to go.
Just enough to keep you coming his direction.
That's it. And so practical. Let's make this practical. If this speaks to somebody's struggling with this right now, one thing I would challenge you to do, if you're trying to figure out if the question in your heart right now is Jesus on the throne of your heart, or is wealth, mammon on the throne of your heart, I would just maybe ask you some questions. If someone could evaluate your thought life throughout the day and look at the percentage of the time that you were thinking about wealth versus the percentage of time you were thinking about your relationship with the Lord, the percentage of time you're thinking about God's word, thinking about what he needs you to do, just evaluate that. What would it look like? Just be honest with yourself. Look at your bank account. Where's your money going? If you have 100% of your money going to worldly things and things for yourself and nothing for the Lord, that may be a problem. It may be indicative. I'm not making any accusations. I don't know who you are, where you are, but I'm just giving you some things to think about. Just look at the decisions you make and the thoughts that you do, and I think they'll help you to figure out who is on the throne of your heart.
Yeah, how does it feel when you release that money in the offering plate?
You grudge? Yeah, it's sweaty.
Yeah, been holding on to grip on it.
Yeah.
It's like at church, we have the children's church, and they'll all run down here with they get dollar bills,
Yeah.
from all the audits. Every one of them got the biggest smile on their
Yeah.
face, and just
Well,
Ready to
God
give
loves
it.
a cheerful giver.
That's the way we're
what
supposed
the
to be.
Bible
We're
says.
supposed to give cheerful.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
I seen a sign one time that really stuck out to me. It said, in 10 years, the only person that's going to know you worked overtime is your kids.
Mm.
Ooh,
And that definitely.
that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Well, hopefully we work through that.
Yeah, I think so.
Y'all feel pretty good about it?
I think so.
Jason said he's good. He's good with it.